How to find and wholesale probate properties. Guys, it's Rick in here, and in this video, we are going to teach you exactly what a probate is, how to get them, and why they are the absolute most profitable deals in wholesaling real estate. But before I get started, I need you to go ahead and hit that like button, smash that subscribe button to continue to receive the best up-to-date wholesaling videos from Flip with Rick. So let's get into it. You guys hear the term probate. I love probates. I started doing back in 2013, and they are absolutely, without a doubt, the number one most profitable deals in my wholesaling real estate business today. So what is a probate? Well, the word probate just means the official proving of the will. So the legal definition is, probate is the legal process in which a property is transferred after the owner's death. So I'm going to basically familiarize you with the few terms you need to understand in probate because it will come up often and I want you to understand it. There's a little thing called a will. A will is nothing more than the deceased person's wishes on how to distribute their assets amongst who, how much they get, and all the different types of assets. So that's a will. So the courts, when they open a probate, they look at two things. They want to know if the person died with a will or if they died without a will. Now, if they died with a will, it's called a testate. If they died without a will, it's called an intestate. So I just want you to understand the difference between dying with a will and without a will. It's this legal terminology, and often lawyers and judges and other people try to confuse us as investors. It's really, really simple. The next term I want you to understand is what they call the personal representative. This is nothing more than the person that gets appointed that's in charge of the disposition of the assets in the probates. So typically the deceased picks out the most responsible person in the family to take care of that, and they spell it out way in advance. And that's called the PR, also known as the personal representative. Now, in some states, they're actually called the executor. Guys, I want you to understand, these are actually the same thing. It's just a terminology, and don't let anybody confuse you on it. And the last one is the beneficiaries. And this is kind of obvious, but these are the people that were going to benefit from the disposition of the assets. If it's real estate, if it's cash, if it's stocks and bonds, cars, boats, whatever it is, the person that gets it in the end is going to be the beneficiary. Understanding that terminology will help you with the language when you deal with people in probate. So before we get into probate, I want to tell you why probate real estate are the absolute best wholesale deals. So number one, I want you to understand most of these properties have deferred maintenance, meaning if somebody is ill or in their final stages of life, fixing up the house is not a big priority, and that makes sense. So if someone's not feeling good and stuff like that, their priority is not fixing up the house. And a lot of times people can spend the last 5 to 10 years of this life that way. And that's the reason why you have deferred maintenance. They're concentrating on the health of the person. The asset is secondary. So a lot of these properties are going to have deferred maintenance. So that's number one. Number two, and this is really my favorite part and why it works out so well with wholesaling real estate, is these properties are vacant, guys. And when they're vacant, it gives you and me a ton of options for us to wholesale the property. We don't have tenants. We don't have homeowners in there. It's very, very easy to bring buyers, bring contractors by there. You can go by and inspect the property as often as you want. It's just very easy to wholesale the property and maintain control of the property. The third reason why probates are so great, let's face it, it's a very emotional decision. When somebody passes away, if you've experienced or know someone who has, it's tough. There's a lot of memories associated with the property. There's an emotional connection, and a lot of people just don't want to deal with it. So if they live in another state and say grandma were to pass away, it's very hard for them to come back and deal with it other than the personal effects. And I've seen this firsthand over the last 19 years. It's emotional. A lot of times they just want to sell the property and move on with their life. Last but not least, the fourth thing is most of the time, if they decide not to keep the property, They rather just sell it as is, meaning they don't want to put money into the property because they're in a position where they were given this property through the probate and they don't have the funds to fix it up. Number two, maybe there's a mortgage on the property. They don't want to keep paying the mortgage. You've got utilities. You got to cut the grass. You got to pay the insurance. You got to pay the properties tax. You guys know where this is going. And a lot of times the sellers of a probate come to the conclusion it's just easier to sell it as is. Typically, if they're going to sell it as is, they're going to find a wholesaler or a cash buyer to go ahead and liquidate them out of the property. So for those four reasons, that's why wholesaling probates are the most profitable strategy you will have in your arsenal in wholesaling real estate. Let's talk about how to do the probate. So Rick, I got it. I get it why they're so profitable. I understand the process. Rick, how do I go out and get them? Perfect question. So number one, you have to find them. And there's only two ways, in my opinion, to locate a probate. Number one, you do it the old school way, which is actually going down and pulling the leads. The leads are derived at your local county courthouse. So you select the courthouse you want to deal with. You can deal with multiple ones. I just want you to understand when you do this, multiple ones will have multiple different techniques on how you pull them. It sounds crazy, but you can go 10 miles from one county to the other and they'll have a completely different system. Some of them let you access it online with a business account. Some of them you actually have to physically go there and pull the records. And some of them make you pull it one by one. It can be painful, but I want to disclose that's really good news for you because you're going to have limited competition when you do it that way. That's number one. Understand all probates derive from your county records. There's no other magical place they come from. That's where they all go to. Step number two in locating probates is using some sort of list service or online service. Now, full disclosure on this, I have literally tried every one that is possibly out there. I've paid up to $300 per county and these specialized list services that promise the world. And 9 times out of 10, they're just recycling old data. And in probates, it's really important to get fresh data. And I tried those services for years and years, and I actually did better at the courthouse. With one disclosure, using listrei.com, if you go there, it's through PropStream. And with our account, you get a 7-day free trial period. And they have a qualification tab called pre-probates. And I got to tell you, it works really well. And the really cool thing, it's automatically included in your subscription. You can get up to 10,000 leads with that, guys. Check that out when you get a moment. But you either go out, you can pull them manually and it's absolutely free. You just got to put in your time and energy in it. Or I would use listrei.com and pull the pre-probates through PropStream. Those are the two ways to get it. The next step is now you got to go out and you got to reach out to these people in probate. 9 times out of 10, you're going to reach out to the personal representative, also known as the PR, or the executor. Remember, these are the people that are in charge of the assets of the estate, especially the real estate. In my opinion, doing this really professionally for 7 or 8 years on probates, my two favorite techniques is number one is what we call a warm call, which is basically cold calling and just talking to them really, really nice, understanding what's going on and really just being genuine in your interest on it. And you got to get past that first 20 to 30 seconds. It's awkward, but if you do it, it gets you first to the lead. The other one is doing a piece of mail. And guys, you don't need a complicated mail house or anything like that. You just print out a letter and you do it on a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And you just say, listen, I'm interested in buying a house in the area. I came across your house and I want to know if there's any interest in selling it. Please let me know. I'm available at this number. It's something as simple as that. The font, I want you to put it in like a 14 size font. Make it nice and big so they can read it. And on the bottom, you're going to sign it in blue ink. Personally, it stands out and it's very effective. And I want this to come from you personally, not so much from a company. I've split tested. I get much better results when we do it personally. Remember, the whole goal of any type of marketing piece is to connect with the seller. So do not overly complicate it with logos and pictures, white paper, black ink, 14 font, blue ink on the bottom so it looks personal. And guys, here's the beauty about doing probate leads. There's not a ton of them. So you might have 50 to maybe 75 or maybe 100 in a really big county. So it's a really, really simple process. You can batch them once or twice a week. The more the merrier. You get the fresh leads out, put them in the mail, put a first class stamp on it, and put a phone number on there that you are going to answer live, one of you or your team members. If you're busy, you can use call services through like CallRail and Vumber, which after 2 or 3 rings, if you're tied up, it will forward to maybe your spouse's phone number, your partner's. That way you answer the leads. The last thing you want to do is go through all of this effort and let it go to voicemail. People like to hear a real person because often they'll get 4 or 5 letters, and whoever makes that connection first has the best shot in getting the deal. Now, before we go any further, I want to give you a full disclosure here. I am not giving you legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, nor am I going to give you any type of accounting advice. What you need to do is connect with a local lawyer in your market that deals with probates and just make sure you're following all the laws and the rules in your state. So now you know what probates are. You know how to go out and get them. And the last thing I'm going to share with you is some mega tips. Tips I've used in Flip with Rick in my business, my son uses, and we have phenomenal results. And if you stayed till the end of this video, I promise you these tips are going to be worth it. And by the way, we use these tips right here, right now, today as we're talking. So tip number 1 is when you get in contact with a seller, maybe they call you back on a letter, maybe you got them when you were warm calling them and you get a hold of them, please, and I beg of you on this one, please do not try to take them down in one contact or one phone call. It just doesn't work that way in probate. People need time to digest the information. They want to see if there's a connection with you. And remember, they're dealing with a very traumatic event. You cannot sit there and force them to sign contracts. I find in probate, the harder you push, usually the worse you do. It doesn't mean you don't follow through, but in the beginning, do not try to take it down in one shot. On average, on our probate deals, it takes 6 connections before we usually get to a contract. So I want you to understand that I have so many competitors in my market who try to force a contract the first time they meet with them, or even on the phone. Hey, sign it virtually. You usually freak somebody out in probate doing that. So what I'm telling you is do not try to take it down in the first contact. So it's going to take you probably 5, but most likely 6 contacts. It might take you more. Who cares? If you get a really good deal and you know this is the most profitable strategy, take your time, listen to your sellers, and help them out as much as possible. Number 2, that leads us to the next one. You've got to be a really good listener when it comes to probate. So God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I believe he knows the plan better than we do. When people in probate, they're usually hurting really bad, and 9 times out of 10, they just want someone to talk through. And a lot of times they won't even talk about the real estate, or they're going to tell you about all the memories associated with their family member in that real estate. And it's important for you to listen and let them understand it. If you start bragging about how you're going to knock the house down and redevelop it, and they don't want that to happen, they're never going to sell you the property. So when you're in these conversations, especially in the first few, you have to be a good listener. Being a good listener will make you so much money in wholesaling probates. It is a huge difference maker. And you've got to put your ego aside and you've got to listen to your seller. The more you listen, the more you'll make. Remember, as you gather information, you collect data for you to be able to help out your seller. So please be a good listener. The next one, and this is kind of ironic I say this, speed kills in probate investing. Why is that? Well, I know that's an oxymoron term, but usually whoever can get to that lead first and make a connection is the one that's going to win 9 times out of 10. So if you're going to get lazy about it and collect leads for 60, 90 days, then send them out a mail piece or just decide to call them then, 90% of the time you're going to get beat to the punch by a realtor or another aggressive investor. So I will tell you this, most people in probate don't even need to know they sell until the event happens And then sometimes you contact them, and as long as you're gentle and polite and you're using your good listening skills, you have the best shot at taking down that probate deal. It's so important. The more often you can pull your probate leads, either you pull them online, you go to listrei.com, or you pull them from your courthouse, either online or in person, the more you can pull that data, the faster you can get to the lead. Remember, all this information eventually gets recycled and sold, and usually they batch the data between 30 and 90 days. If you're hitting it from day 0 to day like 15, you're ahead of the curve. And remember, speed kills in wholesaling probates. So don't forget about that. This is probably the biggest tip I can give you, other than the listening one, is, and you're going to hear a lot of controversy on this, is you do not have to wait till the probate is completed to buy the property. That lawyers will tell you that left and right. Why? Because they want to bill you the additional hours, and they don't want you involved in the process. So you have the ability to buy most probates that have real estate in them before probate is complete. So what happens is the attorney has to file a motion with the judge to basically dispose of the asset. And the reason they have this built in there is to minimize the effect on the estate. So remember, if it's got a mortgage, it's got property tax, it's got utilities, it's got lawn maintenance, it's got insurance. They don't want to own that property for a year and pay all those bills. That can cost another $10,000, $15,000 depending on the size of the property. You do not have to wait till the probate's completed. And quite honestly, if you wait till the probate's completed, it's almost like waiting till a house goes on MLS. The PR, the personal representative or the executor, has the ability and the authority to enter into a real estate contract for sale. And if you can utilize that strategy and lock it in, you don't have to deal with the lawyer as much as you need to. Now, if the lawyer has opened the probate and you have to go through the lawyer, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get killed. They're going to want an appraisal. They're going to want a BPO, a broker's price opinion. And guys, we don't want to do any of that. Try to connect with the PR, the personal representative of the executive, as soon as possible when they have the authority to enter the agreement. That will give you control of the probate. If you wait and try to go through the attorney, they're going to try to bring in a real estate agent, and that's not going to bode well for you. Always try to strike a deal with the PR before you do it with the lawyer. Last but not least, here's a nice little tip that's worked out really well for me and really works out well for me today. Work with your local title companies to find out who the authority is on probates. Find out which attorneys deal with the most probates through your title company, because they'll know, because they'll see the closings come through. And when you find that attorney that specializes in probates and they deal with it a lot, you try to get an introduction through your title company and let them know you buy those types of properties. It's black and white. You make it really simple. And I get a lot of deals referred to me from local attorneys that understand what I do. I have a good reputation with it, and it just takes time to build it up, but it's well worth forging that relationship. I find if you just chase down probate attorneys and you have little to no experience without a title company, there's nobody to back you up, and it actually works against you. So I want you to use these tips right here to go out and absolutely crush probates. Guys, this is the #1 most profitable way to wholesale any real estate deal, is by getting in the probates. I waited till 2013. You guys know in 2003 I started, and I found this all out by accident, by just talking to my accountant and finding more deals like this. So you guys tell me in the comments, do you guys actively chase down probates for wholesale deals? And are you having success in it? I know I am, and I'm hoping this video helps you as well. So guys, do me a favor, hit that like button if you liked this video. Hit that subscribe button to continue to receive the absolute best up-to-date information from myself and Zach. This is Rick with Flip with Rick, and I'll see you in the next video.